Yeehaw, baby! So my plants are in their last week of flower. Mr. Grow It, the one who bred the Chill Out OG, says they take about 8 weeks, and that's coming along on Wednesday. Will be day one of week 8. We'll see how far into week 8 I decide to let them go. But right now, I took a look at them last night. I got them out of their trellis net for that last week because it's not really doing much for them in the first place. Other than like keeping the canopy open a little bit for like wind circulation and stuff like that. But I was taking a look. A lot of the trichomes are milky. There's a little bit of clear. The density is on point. The trichome density, the population of trichomes is absolutely insane. I haven't seen trichomes like this since like Pink Tsunami. Pink Tsunami, I think, is the other like most dense trichome density I've seen. And if I can get stream pulled up here real quick so I can actually talk to you guys and maybe share it on social media while I talk about the plants. But I took them out. I saw a little bit of amber on one or two of the plants, and we're looking like we're going to be harvesting here pretty soon. But I wanted to ask you guys. I wanted to get the community's like input on this. I normally will harvest a plant basically as soon as I see some amber, like kind of peppering the plant. If I'm looking and everywhere I look, I see a little bit of amber, that's normally when I'll pull the trigger. I want to know what percentage are you guys looking for? I've never nailed down to a certain percentage, and if I were to guess, it would normally be like 5 to 10% amber. So, what are you guys looking for when you're looking to harvest? Or does it change by genetic? I would like to know. Get that live chat up here, see if we can set up a goal. Cross our T's, dot our I's here real quick. No limit on that. And if you guys want to see the garden before the next update, that's what the super chat's going to be about, or that's what the goal's going to be. I will show off the garden at the end of the stream. And then, hey, if you guys can't stick around, you can always watch them back later. I always save my VODs and stuff like that. So, I'm looking for as milky as possible. That's normally what I'll go for. As soon as those start turning amber, I know it means they're starting to degrade. Um, Stoned in 604. Hey, thanks for joining the chat, contributing to the conversation. I greatly appreciate it. So I just wanted to look at harvesting, drying, and curing, kind of dip our toes back in the water, get the basics back down. It's been quite a while, actually, since I've even harvested a plant, and I'm already looking like I'm going to need more coffee soon. But that can wait until at least one article. But we got the Leafly article, and those are normally pretty good. I was talking to a coworker. I can't remember if it was. I think it was Thursday. Thursday, I was talking to a coworker, and he was talking about his like process of harvesting. Well, not harvesting. I don't think he grows, but curing plants that he gets. And he says he'll throw them in like a big container, and he will put a dehumidifier inside of the container or like hook it up to the container basically and just suck all the moisture out of the buds. And I'm like, how long does that normally take you? Like, what time frame are you looking for? And he's like, oh, it takes like 3 to 4 days. I'm like, buddy, that's way too fast. He says he stops at like 65%, which is a decent humidity, but that is not the point time is a big factor, and I think that's something I know. I think that's something everyone in the community needs to know, is that time is your friend, and if you take your time to create high quality cannabis, it will be high quality, because it does take a long time to get a proper cure in. If I see 5% amber, it's time. That's about normally where I'm at, but some people will wait until like, wow, what the fuck? I accidentally opened a new tab. Oh, oh boy. That's not what I wanted to do. All right, I guess. Harvesting, drying, curing cannabis. Nope, not videos. Beep boop. Get out of here. Leafly article. But I think I'm either going to cut right at week 8 like he recommends, or somewhere in that 45 to 55 day window, I think it was off the top of my head. And I'm going to just follow his recommendations, because he bred it, he's harvested it multiple times, he knows the genetic, he knows what he's doing with it. So I think I might just go with breeder recommendations, unless things are just looking really good. And so far, everything is looking solid. The bud structure is immaculate. Taking them out of the room, I feel like, has changed my perspective of the actual plant, if that makes sense. Like, as good as they look in the flower, like actual flower garden, cutting them from that trellis and bringing them out into my living room to give them a good look at the same time as hanging out with my family gave me a new appreciation for the plant and how it's doing and how it's looking and its structure. And I think maybe just seeing the frost under that like tiny LED light, it just, I don't know, man, it hit different. The structure was looking different. The plants looked a little bigger than I originally thought they were. But let's get into this Leafly article about harvesting and what is it? Just harvesting? The ultimate guide to drying and curing for the best results. So just drying and curing, and then we'll get into. Should we actually go in order and pull up an article when to harvest cannabis? Because I feel like that would make the most sense. We'll get into the harvesting and then the drying and curing, and then we'll kind of do this in order. When are marijuana buds ready to harvest? So let's get into it. And hopefully, since I actually changed the category on this stream to education, hopefully I don't get hit with an age restriction. But you never know. Women can breastfeed, and you can do naked yoga on YouTube. God damn it. But if you show weed, brother, you're not making any money. It's not happening. It's not happening. And also, I did set up a Cash App. One thing I want to get into before we read this article, and then I promise we'll hop right into it. But I set up a Cash App, and you guys, if you guys want that link so that you can dodge YouTube getting a cut of money, like some people recommended when I transplanted those plants in the first place, I will send that link if you guys want to see it. But intro: when to harvest cannabis for the highest potency and best smell. And gosh darn it, our plants are smelling good. When should we harvest the buds from the cannabis plant? This is the eternal question. I'm sure the answer we're looking for is, or the answer we're all thinking is not soon enough, which, damn, I can relate, because I was thinking, I even told my wife this. I was like, man, I want to cut these plants down so bad right now. They're looking so fucking good. I want to get in there, and I actually did cut a couple samples to dry on the side of my clone dome. Very small samples, like a joint and a half worth maybe. So that'll be fun. Unfortunately for us impatient marijuana growers, harvesting at the right time is just as important as how you grow the plant. Harvest too soon, you lose potency, smell, density, and cannabis yields. Too late, and you can end up making a batch of sleep medicine, which, depending on who you ask, not the worst thing. Not the worst thing. Ready to harvest bud examples. The following 6 marijuana buds are in the harvest window. Buds are ready for harvest when most of the hairs have darkened and curled in, as you can see in the solid bud underneath, which These are in their harvest window, kind of like what the Chill Out OGs are looking like right now. Looking at the buds is a great estimate, but you can look at the glittery trichomes under a magnifier for the most precise harvest time. Trichome heads on buds start out clear and glassy. At this point, buds are not very potent, which is because they don't have a lot of that stuff saturating the inside of the mushroom heads. And we're not seeing a lot of this on the Chill Out OG anymore. See all these clear looking buds. Most of them are milky. I would say 95% of them are milky. 1% are amber, and then the other 1% are clear. So we're really getting into that window. As cannabis buds mature, trichome heads turn milky white. They kind of look like white plastic under a magnifying glass. These white trichome heads are associated with the highest level of THC, CBD, and terpene content. The smell in buds, or terpene content smell in the buds. The highest THC, CBD, and smell tends to be when the trichomes look white, which is right where we're at. So this would actually be like, if that's what I'm looking for, just before the stuff starts to turn amber, just before the stuff starts to turn into a more couch lock, kind of sleepy, and be on that end of things, that would be right where we're at. So I wouldn't hate to try to harvest in week 7, but I don't want to quite yet. If given more time, white trichome heads turn into amber or golden for most strains. Amber trichomes have less THC but produce more relaxing anti-anxiety effects. Yellow amber trichomes signal late harvest and may make you sleepy or at least extra relaxed, which again, if you're looking for therapeutic effects, if you want to be more relaxed, you're super stressed or whatever, that could be a positive thing for you. Quick recap, when to harvest summary. Look at the buds compared to the pictures. Bud hairs are solid and have curled in. Buds have already harvested when the hairs have darkened and curled in, revealing solid buds underneath. Looking at the trichome color with a magnifier. Clear trichomes, not ready. Half clear, half white trichomes, early harvest. THC is not at max potency yet. May cause more of a up or psychoactive mental effect and less of a down or body effect. Buds won't feel as strong or get you as high. If you harvest a little later, yields typically haven't maxed out yet. Mostly milky white. Typically, highest levels of THC, CBD, terpenes, strong overall effects of buds. Also, buds tend to have achieved maximum density and size. So that's the point we're at right now. So technically, I could harvest, and I wouldn't have any problems, just like I've done in the past. Mostly white, just starting to get into the amber. And a lot of the trichomes, they develop at different stages in the plant's life. So a trichome that popped up in like week 5 isn't going to mature as fast as a trichome that popped up in week 3 or 4. So you got to keep that in mind too. Not every trichome is going to turn white because of that reason. They're just young trichomes. Amber or yellow, as the bud continues to mature past their prime, the trichomes start turning amber or golden. The greater number of amber trichomes, the more buds produced down the body couch lock effect. THC levels start to go down as the THC is converted to less psychoactive CBN. This bud with all white trichomes has reached the highest level of THC/CBD. Wait another week or two for the trichome heads to turn amber for a more relaxing effect. And what a beautiful bud it is. Absolutely crazy. And I did a video too. How do I get out of here? Oh shit. Uh, do I just click off? Oh shit. Okay. Just brought me to a whole new page. That's interesting. I did a video too where I told you guys how I was determining harvest, and it was by using a cell phone camera. And that's definitely a way to do it. And if you guys want to go see that video, it is on my channel somewhere. It's definitely worth checking out if you don't have the money or you don't want to use a jeweler's loupe. Oh, and they even. What? I hate my mouse sometimes. They even have it right here. So when it comes to magnifying tools for growing, the three most popular options are jeweler's loupe. This is the cheapest and most effective low tech to get the job done. Unfortunately, that's still difficult to get the best insight as to how your buds are doing, unless you have already had great eyes. Though the one I linked is the best I've tried. Will definitely get the job done in a pinch. And the one I have, actually, I'll grab it right now. Ugh. So the one I got off of Amazon is a VivoSun, and it has two different magnifying glasses on it. And the big one I believe is 20% magnification or times 20 magnification, and the small one I think is times 40. But I would have to look it up. I could actually do that real quick if you guys don't mind. I could pull it up on my Amazon purchases, and we can get you exact numbers because my memory isn't the greatest thing in the world. That's uh, um okay, here we go. VivoSun times 30 and times 60. So those are the magnifications that I'm working with, 30 and 60, and that works super well. So your camera phone. Many modern smartphones have excellent cameras that can take clear pictures of your trichomes and try to use lots of natural light. Hold the phone very still, set it on something stable if possible, or use a tripod, and zoom for the best magnification images. And mine goes to like, I think it went to times 19 zoom, and then I'd take a picture as clear as I possibly could. And I have really steady hands when I need them to be. I've been doing the videography and photography for quite a few years, since I've started my growing journey. And to actually like document all the stuff that goes on in my garden, it's been a great help. Digital USB microscopes, which is something that I want to get simply for creating content. I could probably hook that up to my laptop, do a screen recording, and then make it as part of the video. But a digital USB microscope is one of the best tools to determine the right harvest time. A digital microscope costs a bit more than a loupe. Most models need to be connected to a smartphone or a laptop, which I could do it with my smartphone actually, and get it right into my editing app that I have on there. But they will get you face to face with your trichomes and allow you to take video to re-examine afterwards or get a second opinion. You'll be most uncomfortably close. You'll be almost uncomfortably close to your trichomes, which I don't think is possible. Speaking as a grower and speaking to growers, I don't think that we are the type to get uncomfortable being too close to our plants. We might make other people uncomfortable with how close we get to our plants. This harvest tool will fully cover the two main techniques cannabis growers use to identify to harvesting plants. Note, you will want to flush your cannabis plants, which is optional, in the last week or so leading up to harvest time, growing in cocoa or soil for at least a few days in hydro, and for at least a few days in hydro. This is most important if you've been using high levels of added nutrients while buds are forming. Click the following link to get more info of flushing before harvest. And one thing I want to do actually is right now I'm going to be feeding them just plain water, nothing super extravagant for the last half a week. We're at Saturday today, so Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday for the last 4 days, and I already watered the one with plain water one time. I'm going to be doing just plain water, get them a little bit less, see if we can get a little bit of color to come out coming into that last week, and then let them use what's left over or what's saturated the pot. And then one thing I do want to do is 48 hours straight of just light. See if we can maximize those trichomes and terpenes, because that's what happens during the day they produce those. They perspirate, and they will actually create more than they evaporate under the best conditions. And since the lights are actually on right now, I'm going to go open that door since I'm not risking light stress. Opened the door, took a good look. Plants are looking pretty good. Leave that door wide open. It gets extremely hot in there. I've left the door closed a couple days by mistake, and it gets up to 86 degrees in there. Those SF2000s are just cranking the heat out in there, dude. Plus, it gets really hot in this room because we got heat running because it's wintertime right now, and we're using that heat, baby. Fuck. I did it again. Fuck. God fucking damn it. This is gonna frustrate me a little bit. I'm not used to those buttons. I don't know why I'm so... No vents? No, I'm just growing in a closet. I don't have any vents. I leave the door open most of the time since I normally have the light off in this room, and it's not that intense of a light in the first place, but I leave the door open, and that will bring the temperature down into the 70s. I can actually look right now to see where the temperature's at, just to give you guys an idea. Yeah, so it's at 70 right now. 70 degrees, and then the humidity is also extremely low, so I didn't have to do anything special to avoid mold accumulating in there, and I didn't have to take any extra precautions like a dehumidifier or anything like that. And actually, if I were to throw a humidifier in there to get the humidity up, they probably would have preferred that, but we're a little bit late for that to matter now. So no, I don't have any vents in there. I don't have anything like any holes in the wall or anything crazy like that. I just have the door that I keep open, and it regulates the temperature. Super high tech, I know. So getting back to where we were, this harvest tutorial will cover what we need to go over. Where Jeweler's Loop. Flush your cannabis plant. Okay, this is where we were. First, we'll show you how to identify harvest time by checking the pistils, the hairs on your buds. The pistils method isn't nearly as accurate as checking the trichomes, the glitter on your buds, but it is definitely a good place to start since you can just look at the buds and get a general idea. Then we'll get into the trichomes. The following marijuana harvest pictures guide show you when to harvest marijuana buds with the pistol method. So first off, does anyone even use the pistol method anymore, or is it just completely outdated? Does anyone in the chat use it? Does anyone know anyone who uses it? Because I haven't heard it being used since the last I even heard of it was people were talking about how people used to do it in the 2000s. And I've heard a couple people come in and leave comments and they're just like, "Oh, when the pistols are mostly orange or turning colors, that's when you want to do it." When the vast majority of pistils or hairs on the white and sticking out straight, the cannabis plant is not ready for harvest. This is way too early for harvest, and that's probably about week 4 or 5, many weeks to go. Is not ready. Both potency and yields are extremely low at this age. Still not ready for harvest pictures. We're waiting for most of the hairs to darken and curl in. Some of the pistils are starting to turn color on the following buds, but there are still many white pistils. The buds have at least a few weeks to go before they reach their highest THC levels. The good news is your buds will get bigger and denser in time, which is very true. Too many hairs sticking out, still not ready but closer. Some hairs are now curling in. That is old bro science for sure. But some people still use bro science, such as flushing is technically bro science because they did a study on it and it didn't really change anything that had to do with the plant. But people still do it and people still swear by it. Harvest when 70 to 90% of the hairs have darkened at the highest THC level. Harvest when 90 to 100% of the hairs have darkened and are curling in for anti-anxiety effects as some of the THC turns to the more relaxing CBN. Also, Ken Farmer, hey, thanks for joining the conversation. Thanks for hanging out and contributing and just being part of the stream. Greatly appreciate it. With some strains, you may see a bunch of pistils appear right when you look, or right when you think you're getting close. This is normal, but it happens more than 3 times. You eventually go to make the decision to chop. Learn how to speed up the harvest time. You may also be interested in what's causing buds to take forever to mature, which could just be genetics and stuff. Ready to harvest on the early end, more up effects and lower yields. Here are some examples of buds that have reached the very beginning of the harvest window. Don't harvest buds earlier than this. And obviously this look is going to vary, but you can see this bud looks very mature. There's high trichome density. You can even see with the naked eye that it looks like a very milky. I find when it actually looks milky to the naked eye, there are a lot of milky trichomes on there, and if you have very prominent trichomes in your genetics, you will be able to see when some of them start to turn amber, and I find that very fun. Mixed signals example. This purple bud is on the early end of the harvest window, although the pistil's hairs have darkened. They are mostly sticking straight out in this case. You could harvest now, but to maximize potency, you might want to wait a little bit longer until the hairs curl in a more and reveal a solid bud underneath. Also, look to the color of the hairs on the lower buds, not directly under the grow light, but when you're getting mixed signals like this, as they may be better indicators for harvest readiness. Ready to harvest max potency in the middle of the harvest window, only a few white hairs. This is considered the prime harvest window for cannabis plants. This period is when THC levels, other cannabinoids like CBD and terpenes in the buds tend to be the highest. So some max potency examples. all looking ready, all looking mature, all looking fantastic. It's common for cannabis plants to show autumn colors once they are fully in the harvest window. These cannabis plants are ready for harvest, and you can see they're turning all sorts of colors. You got some yellows here. I got yellow in my garden. That's most of the colors we're seeing. You got some purple up here, which unfortunately I'm not getting, which could be to lack of proper temperature. It's a very hot spring for them in that closet. Ready to harvest on the late side, more of a down body effect. This is after the prime harvest window, which is the last week or two at this point. You're in the late harvest window at this point. Plants are not packing on more THC, and after a while, some of the THC slowly starts to degrade into a sleepier CBN. That means buds are harvested later. Side may have had a down effect and may be more better suited for later night. Well, as opposed to during the day. However, I've known many growers who prefer this effect, so it's worth experimenting to find out what's right for you. And that's kind of what it's all about, is finding out what you want out of your plant. Because a lot of people, I think the vast majority of people, when they smoke, they want that body effect. They want to be knocked out. They want to be knocked out. They want to have that sedated effect. And a lot of people specifically use it for sleep. What's up, AA Ron? Aaron Woodley? What's good, man? Just, we're getting really close to our harvest period on our garden. So I wanted to come and just re-up, get some refreshers, get back to the basics. Maybe some of you guys are getting close to harvest and you could learn something that you wouldn't have considered from the stream, from one of these articles we're going to be looking into or something like that. But I think the high effects change just like the flavor. I don't know how much the flavor really changes. Have you like experimented with that? People want what they can't have. I mean, I want what I have. But it's kind of funny. What do you mean, like, specifically people want what they can't have? Like, people are just envious? Yeah. People are going to be envious of a lot of stuff. Like, I have a lot of things that I want to get into that I haven't been able to get into yet. Like, I want to be able to do a hydro setup at one point, but that's not something that's kind of pressing me. I want to grow plants that I've grown in the past before, and I want to grow plants that I've seen others grow, like stuff from Humboldt Seed Co. that I haven't been able to get into. But I'm going to go to, man, thinking about making more coffee. I don't know if that's necessary quite yet. Read a little bit more of the article, see where it takes us. I'm feeling so low energy right now, it's not even funny. Ready to harvest special cases, stressed buds. I mean, like, people want the couch like high, but recently they want sativa soaring high. Okay, so you mean just like trends are circulating, I think. That's very possible. Trends could be circulating. You could be talking to different people who want different stuff. Um, there could be a lot of things with that. Sometimes you need to harvest your cannabis plants, even though there are a lot of white pistils left. For example, if the leaves on the plant die, for example, it gets sick or stressed, which a lot of my plants, I've been posting my plants a lot, and my plants are stressed. They're overfed. They've had like light infestations of bugs, and I've been able to fight those off at the very least. But they are very stressed, overfed. It seems like they're going into the later stages of flower where they don't need as much food. And they have been burned a little bit, and they're just kind of overall stressed. And people have been commenting on that a lot, acting like I have no idea. I am Green Giant. What is good, man? We are just getting to harvest stuff again. Um, Getting to that time of the year. You know, I'm growing the Chill Out OG by Mr. Grow It. I'm very excited. I'm very hyped. I've been taking video. I've been documenting this plant. I think you guys are really going to love the harvest update where just a little preview of what to expect. They're in week 7 right now. They're week 8 harvests, and I'm going to do the update. It's going to include up to the point I'm hanging them upside down. So late flower into harvest is going to be the next update, and you're going to see my drying setup kind of also. So I hope you guys can get hyped for that. But people have been critiquing my plants, acting like I'm not in there every single day and don't know what's going on. Like, yeah, things are going wrong, but things go wrong in the cannabis garden. It's not a matter of if things will go wrong; it's a matter of when. And yeah, people have just been getting under my skin a little bit, acting like they can judge me off of this one grow they've seen. But to the people who are staying positive, hey, rock on, brother. Love y'all, appreciate y'all. Thanks for not hating for the sake of it. Sick or stressed, the yellowing or discoloration starts spreading to the flowers. If you let this go on too long, it can damage the overall quality, potency, and smell of appearance of buds. If you have a sick plant in the late flowering stages that keep getting worse, keep a close eye on the buds. Try to harvest before it gets too damaged, which we are not at that point quite yet. They will be able to do their entire cycle, it seems like. It's not accelerating in damage. It's not getting too crazy. When I took them out of the garden, I was able to actually rotate them. Again, I got that trellis net off, so I was able to rotate them, spin them, get to places I wouldn't have been able to before. You are growing. That is what is important, bro. Facts. I like how you show and deal with those things in the grow. Yeah, fuck people. That's pretty much my entire attitude about it. It's like, I'm going to do what I do, and I'm very passionate about documenting what I do. And being transparent is part of the fucking game. And for those people, so a word of advice, kind of. For those people who are going into wanting to document, wanting to go into social media, it is very disgusting, in my opinion, to only show the best parts of what you're doing, the most beautiful parts of what you're doing, because that is only like 5% of the picture. Like, for example, if I only ever showed you guys the plants that I've harvested that were pristine and in my top 10 of 10 grows ever, and I never showed you any bugs, I never showed you that I harvested powdery mildew plants when I was young and stupid, I never showed you my first harvest ever, which I'm thinking about making those videos public again just to show you guys how disgusting those plants really were and how shitty of an environment I let them grow in and how much I just didn't know. If I didn't tell you that I had thrips in flower and was spraying my plants in flower, which I don't recommend, but I'm kind of forced to do in this situation, being as stubborn as I am. If I didn't show you that I contaminated my indoor garden with outdoor soil and caused a problem for myself, I would not be doing the service of being a public educator, and that's what this is all about. And one of the critiques was, how are you going to teach people how to grow high quality cannabis when you're growing cannabis in this way, which some people could argue that it's not as high quality. But the smell's there, the potency's there, the trichome density's there, the plants are looking fantastic, the yield is high, the techniques are on point, the training is all right. But I have all this other shit going on, and if I didn't show you guys all that other shit, I wouldn't be giving you the full picture, and I feel like I'd be doing a disservice. I wouldn't be able to educate you on the things not to do. So that's kind of where I'm at. And you're showing what people don't show on YouTube and telling the truth of a lot of people hiding the facts. I show my mistakes just so when other people make them, they don't give up. You hit the nail on the head, brother. That's exactly what people they talk about. do they talk about the good things, never explain how they got buds or how to feed or what's going on in the growth. Yeah, so shout out to you guys. Um, but yeah, no, shit goes wrong in the garden. Bugs exist. Powdery mildew exists. Bud rot exists. I've lost plants to bud rot, and I talk about it a lot. And why do I talk about it a lot? Because it's okay. You don't need to give up just because you had that outdoor season that didn't work well. You don't need to give up because you grew plants, but you did some mistake. It's about finding out what the mistake is and then correcting the behavior. That's what this is all about. And if I can set out to be that guy who keeps one person growing because they almost gave up because of a mistake they made, but they see me growing and still making mistakes even 5 years in, then it's all worth it. That's it. That's my mission. Because I want people to create their own high quality cannabis at home and not have to rely on anybody. This cannabis this cannabis bud was burned by LED grow lights being too close. Harvest now before the buds get worse, stressed, or damaged. Which I don't think my plants are showing. They're not showing any light stress, and they're not showing any heat stress, which is good because the heat is high and the intensity. I mean, I got the equivalent of an SF4000 in there, not dimmed at all. I turned the dimming off, so they're at their maximum brightness, maximum power, and they're only maybe like 2 feet, maybe 2.5 feet above the plants, and they could go closer if I really wanted them to. But I do want that footprint still. The new growth is just a trick because usually when you see buds getting burned like this, the plant is ready to harvest. Close up to the light stress cannabis plant example. Yeah, you see all of this little burning in here. We don't have this like that. If I go in and look up close and personal, I might actually take a look. So the leaves that are coming off the buds right now that they're getting a close look at for this example are the least damaged leaves that are on my plants. So I don't have to worry about this so much. It is a nutrient problem, as far as I can tell. Harvest immediately if random parts of the buds start dying. This may be bud rot, which will keep spreading, which I had a cherry cookies, which I was super excited about because it was there. It had the mass, it had the density, it had the potency, it had everything. And it was all riddled with bud rot, and I just didn't know. It was basically a dead plant standing. Um, Now the buds on this next plant have many white pistils, but just about every leaf is yellow or brown. Should you harvest now or should you wait? The cannabis plant is dying. Cannabis plants cannot recover from this kind of stress late in the flowering stage, and will keep getting worse. In this case, it's a good idea to harvest soon before the buds start um, being affected in the picture above. Harvest now if you don't have green, healthy leaves left, but buds start dying also. Otherwise, the buds will start dying also, which is also important. I have a ton of green, healthy growth, especially on one of the plants in particular, has the least amount of stress, and it is a vast difference. I'm not sure what's making the difference. It could be that the light's higher up. It could be that it's just handling the food better. It could be a fucking vast web of things. There are a lot of factors that are going into this run right now. But my plants don't look like this. It is not that bad. A close up of the buds, even if the buds don't look quite ready yet, harvest now because your plant is dying. And if your plant is dying, yes, harvest early. Get what you can out of it for sure. Because I would rather have like ounces on ounces of like lower quality stuff or like high energy stuff rather than a ton, like the same amount of stuff basically, because you're not working on yield at this point. You're just working on the potency. If you're past like week 6.5, 7, you're just working on the effects basically, the trichome color. And at that point, it doesn't really matter if you're dealing with an 8-weeker. Of course, if you're working with a 12-weeker or 13-weeker, it's a little bit different. The extensive new growth on top of the bud is a sign of heat or light stress. So it might be a little light stress, but I don't see heat. Like I don't see the tackling of the leaves that you typically see. But maybe that's just more of an extreme example of what can happen. Too much heat and light can cause other problems. Notice the yellow banana sticking out of the top of the middle of the bud in the next picture. Um, this is a stress response that the plant is making a last ditch effort to pollinate itself and make seeds before the plant dies. If your bud starts popping up with bananas everywhere, it's time to harvest. Otherwise, you will start losing potency, smell, and the buds may get. God, fucking damn it! I did it again. I probably did that like what 5 times now, 6 times now. Mm. Buds may get seedy. Notice the yellow banana on top of the cannabis plant. Extreme heat and light burn. Harvest now. Which I took a close look at my plants and I did not see any of this. Didn't see any of that. So no nanners on my plant, which is good. Should not find any seeds on those. And if I do, by any chance stretch of the imagination, I definitely will. I'll be right back. I'm going to. I just got a text that I got to send my wife a picture of her license plate. She is possibly getting a new car today. So put your W's in chat for a new car that's actually safe and reliable. I will also make some coffee and be right back. Sorry, I hit the cord that's attached to the camera. I'll be right back. I'm back. What's good, everybody? How much longer is this article? It's pretty long. So we'll go over the trichome method a little bit, and then kind of move on because we also have drying and we have curing to go over as well. And I don't want to be here for like 30 hours. This ARVID method tends to be more precise than looking at the pistils or the hairs of the buds of the cannabis plants. Look at the trichomes under a magnifier to find the desired THC level. With this, oh, by the way, I wanted to ask, what is everyone's like favorite terpene profile that they've come across? Because mine leans more towards like the candy side of things, like anything that smells super like sweet, fruity, candy like. That's normally what I go for. What does everyone else like? I also like fruity stuff. With this method, you look at the glandular stalked trichomes, the buds under a magnifying glass trichomes in the mushroom-looking gross. Or trichomes are the mushroom-looking growths on a cannabis plant responsible for being so popular. In some places, these trichomes are called resin glands. These trichomes are crystals or frosty stuff you see accumulating on your buds or leaves. They're also what makes weed so sticky because that acid is extremely sticky. And when you touch it, pine and mercy, pine is always a good one. But when you touch those trichomes and then it ruptures the mushroom head and that acid gets all over your fingers, it makes it super sticky. And that's something that it's a desirable trait. Funky Dank and Fuel are my faves. Sweet Candy is a second. Thank you, Funky Wanderer, and I am Green Giant. Um, the trichomes you're trying to see look like the little mushrooms. You may also see tiny, clear, hair-like trichomes without the mushroom head, but these don't affect potency, so you can ignore them. You are interested in trichomes that have a little ball on top. The little balls on top of the trichomes is where a lot of the THC and other good stuff in cannabis plants are most concentrated. Since these trichomes are what contribute the greatest amount of bud potency, being able to tell they've reached their high levels of THC helps you choose the exact right time to harvest your marijuana. Cannabis trichomes are difficult to see with the naked eye, so you'll need a jeweler's loupe or other way of magnifying the image in order to use the trichome method or determining harvest time. Conversely, some cameras can take macro shots of that are clear enough to see the stage of the trichomes um, are in, but they can be pricey. Jeweler's loupes are relatively cheap to buy online. It'll be like $10 to $15 normally. Gas is also a good one. The chill out OGs, some of them are like leaning more towards the gassiness, and one of them is leaning heavy into the candy. And I like that the gas to candy, it kind of fluctuates in the way I have my garden set up. So the one all the way to the right is kind of more on the gassy side. The middle one has a little bit of gas and a little bit of the candy. And then the one on the far left has the most candy smell. I have a $20 microscope that I can clip to my phone. It's perfect. I used to have one of those. I don't know what happened to it, but I loved using it to make content, and I think you can still find those videos on my channel today. I view marijuana trichomes through a jeweler's loupe. which I'm sure I could take a picture like this, but I don't like how low quality it looks. And I might be able to get a better one if I mess around with it a little bit, but I do like the ones that clip onto your phones, like Ken Farmer has. If you put the loop right up to your buds, you'll get a better view of the trichomes, letting you better determine their color and shape. Although the jeweler's loop can make trichomes appear bigger, sometimes it's not big enough. I know I end up squinting a lot when I'm trying to use one, but they're a heck of a lot better than nothing. Although it's cheap, this Weasley style jeweler's loop is one of the best rated jeweler's loops in the under $20 price range. It's the one I use. However, please note, although it says times 40 magnification, you don't get nearly as much as that. However, you find the problem with every jeweler's loop that I've ever ordered. They advertise more magnification than what you get. That being said, for a lot of growers, this will get the job done. IDK, if I have a favorite terp, I'm more about effects. That's fair enough. I do like good effects, but I also, when I'm looking to get my effects, I also like enjoying the taste of something while I'm smoking it. Because personally, I was talking to my brother about this, and we both agree. We like the activity of smoking weed more than we like being high, personally. Depending on the time of day, I want different effects. Yep. Yeah, that's what you'll find commonly with most people is they want their daytime weed and they want their nighttime weed and they want their activity weed and they want their at home playing video games weed. Which for me personally, with the games I play, unless I'm playing like the Call of the Wild, where I'm like basically sitting back, chilling, just shooting animals, grinding that shit out. Oh yeah, it gotta be tasty. And I haven't come around a lot of terpenes that I hate, unless it's like super like earthy, and not like earthy in like a dirt kind of way, like a soil, because soil is kind of sweet. You know what I mean? Like it's a certain thing you can appreciate about an actual soil taste. But I've smoked weed that kind of tastes like sand, and I don't know if that's just because it's an over dried process or there's no terpenes left at that point because they've all vaporized off of the plant or something like that. But I've smoked some unpleasant weed, but I haven't come across a lot of terpenes that I don't necessarily like. Digital microscopes, they go over some of the technology. So digital microscopes you can get. I'm looking to see if they go into percentage, and it looks like they do right here with this graphic. Um, don't harvest if most of the hairs are all white and sticking out. Um, trichomes half clear, half cloudy. Mostly milky trichomes. Here we go. 70 to 90% of the white hairs have darkened and the trichomes have become amber. You tend to get more of a relaxing neurotic couch-like effect, which they don't go into percent of amber. It looks like that they prefer, which is what a lot of people base their harvest off of. But basically, you want to be in between as much milky white as you can get, and a certain amount of amber, depending on how much of a couch-like effect you want. Good God. Um, know about cannabis, learning everything you could possibly want to know about cannabinoid levels in your marijuana and what you need to do to control the growth, potency, and buds. And one thing I want to do, you guys can tell me if you care about this. When I start putting out my own genetic, that canine cake that I've been talking about wanting to make, you guys let me know if you want a super in-depth, like me to send my stuff off to a lab to get the cannabinoid profile, like actually tested, and terpene profile actually tested to see exactly what's going on in there, because that's something I want to do. Grapefruit is the best for me for daytime getting shit done and focus on my ADHD. That grapefruit is an amazing plant. I grown it before. I The way I described it, it was like a super fancy bud structure. It was a really well structured plant. And the way I described it, it seemed like that fancy older brother that like is sort of British, drinks tea, and always wears a suit. Like that's the vibe I got from that plant. I don't know exactly why I got that vibe off of it, but if you go back and watch my grow with me, I believe I did a grow with me with that plant, um, or at least did a flower update, and that plant was in it. I described it, and looking back years later, I'm like, yeah, I did feel that way, but I don't remember why. And then they go more reiterating, try not to harvest early. And then, okay, they do a little bit of curing. Step one, cut down the plant. Two, trim away the extra leaves. Begin to dry the buds. Wait till the buds feel dry. Um, Go into mason jars. Open daily for 1 to 3 weeks. Um, Over 70% relative humidity. Place buds outside jars for 12 to 24 hours. Moist, leave buds in the jar with their top off for 2 to 4 hours, so that's 65 to 70. Dry, 60 to 65. Cure zone, this is where you want to be, in between that 60 to 65 range. And 55 and below, which actually new stuff is coming out that 55 relative humidity and temperature is where you want to be for the maximum stuff. You just don't want to get there too fast. Now you're ready to harvest your own plants, and then they got some more pictures up there. So drying and curing buds, we can go a little bit deeper into that. The drying process is the initial drying of the buds, which usually happens in the open air. Freshly harvested plants can loosen up 75% of their weight and moisture loss, as well as their sticks, stems, branches, and leaves that get trimmed off. When dry trimming, um, wow, when dry trimming, drying happens first, and then the buds are trimmed. In wet trimming, vice versa. Um, a dry shouldn't be too quick or too long. Too quick, the outside of the buds will appear dry, but the insides won't be. Too long, and buds should or could develop mold. When the buds are trimmed and dried, they should be placed in airtight containers for curing. This stops the loss of moisture, preventing flavors and aromas, allowing the buds to take their full flavor. Which is kind of what I tried to explain is weed is like wine. You got to give it time or else it won't be as high quality. Yeah, that's about the way I dry. I dry upside down for 2 weeks and then air dry it and put them in jars. It's done, but I put silica packs inside. I never really used silica packs. I used to save them, but after learning a little bit more about them personally, I don't use them. I just kind of keep an eye on what the relative humidity is and when I need to open those jars a little bit and release a little bit of that moisture. I find not that I'm more reliable than technology, but if I try to rely on technology, I won't perform as well. And that could be different for someone else. Like if silica packs are working for you and you're growing high quality cannabis and you're using silica packs, use fucking silica packs, man. Whatever you need to do. I'm not dissing it. Um, just finished my dry. Now the curing starts. Crippled Cannabis Cowboy, how long have you been growing? You are a brand new. I've never seen you in the chat. So how long have you been growing? What exactly are you curing? What did you go through the growing process with? Drying takes about 2 to 7 days. The process is usually shorter when wet trimming because most of the plant's material is trimmed away first and there is less plant to dry, which Right now I'm at the point where I'm taking off most of the damaged leaves. I talked about that yesterday. I took off a lot of the damaged ones, things that were shadowing buds. I want them to finish strong. I want the trichomes to develop well and all that stuff. Just finished my dry. Now the curing starts. Okay, I already read that message. Sorry about that. And when I get to the point where I'm actually going to cut these plants down, I'm going to cut off a ton of the fan leaves. And trust me, there are a ton of fan leaves on these plants. There are a ton. Chill Out OG, if you like vegetation and you can handle a lot of vegetative growth, I highly recommend the plant. Highly recommend it. When dry trimming your cannabis plants, you hang the harvested plants upside down on a line or a hanger, either whole or the either whole plants or branches. This prevents the buds from getting flattened or misshapen as they dry. When wet trimming, you will place the buds on a drying rack. Whether wet or dry trimming, check the buds or branches after 2 days by bending the branch stem. If the stem snaps, that means the buds are fully dry. If they don't snap, leave them in and check the next day, which personally, when I'm drying my plants, I wait for the outside of the buds to be a little bit crispy, but it to be like sponge-like and bounce back a little bit, but you still get that good quality crisp on those plants. And when you bend your branch, you want it to like feel like there isn't a lot of life in it, but you don't want it to completely like snap or crack. I find that's a little bit over where you need to be. You want a little bit more moisture going into that. You want a little bit more to work off of when you're curing your plant. You can cure it a little bit longer, and that curing process is what makes the potency where you want it to be, in my opinion. I've been growing indoors strictly after I got sick 3 years ago now, or for 3 years now. Several years before that, it changed so much. The Groove Life meters put inside jars monitor the humidity. I do have humidifier. I do have humidity meters. They measure humidity and temperature. I love the plants with a good bud to leaf ratio. I do hate trimming. Oh, we all hate trimming, man. Trim jail is not. It's not fun. It's fun for like a day, the first day, and then you get over it, and then you're like, fuck, I got to go home after work and trim these plants up. But I feel like depending on where your plants are at, it can be worth it. If they smell really good, if you're having fun, at least, if you can watch something in the background or you can play some music in the background, get some bumping going, you can have a good time with it. Whether wet or dry trimming, check the branches 2 days and if they don't snap, leave them and check the next day, which again, personally, I don't wait for them to completely snap. And a lot of these fan leaves, if I were doing this, they would be gone. I got an AC Infinity trim ball. I feel like royalty. Congratulations, man. Congratulations, man. Good job. Not all of us. Not all of us have that, so it is going to take me like, to trim those plants up, it might take me like 4 or 5 days, and I'm dreading those 4 or 5 days. Hippie trim, bare minimum. I'm smoking it. I'll clean it up before I grind it up. Respect, Funky Wanderer. Respect. Also, Ken Farmer, how much are you able to trim with that trim bowl? Is it like pounds every couple of minutes, or what are we looking at here? A good drying room will need to be dark with a temperature between 60 to 70 and humidity between 65 or 55 and 65. A cheap hygrometer will help you monitor these numbers. By the way, if anyone from AC Infinity is watching this, hit me up. I'd love a sponsorship. I would love to try out one of those trim bowls. If you could get it to me like this week, that'd be great. This week or next week, that'd be fantastic. I'd love to work with you guys. Depending on your house or property, you may be limited in what you can use for a drying room. I use my bathroom. Knowing what could be hard to control temperatures and humidity in big rooms. Also know what the room will smell. Know that the room will smell like weed. Be sure to the space you chose doesn't have a huge fluctuation in temperature and humidity, add a small fan to circulate air, and you may need to add a dehumidifier or air conditioning as well. If it's taking too long to dry the buds in your space, you will need to adjust the temperature or the humidity to help with the drying process. Trim coal can go pretty fast. I did about 5 pounds in a day with my wife trimming the colas by hand. That's fucking ungodly. That is Godspeed. I'm pretty much set to deal with what humidity and temperature my wife wants the house at. I would like it to be a little bit cooler. Like if we could have it like 65 in the house, that'd be neat. But we have it more towards like 70. But that's fine, whatever. And the reason I'm going to be using my bathroom isn't because I like the idea of drying my plants in the bathroom, but it's the fact that I am going to be starting seeds. I'm going to be starting peanut butter breath inside of that room and whatever else I have lying around. So maybe a strawberry banana. I bought new peat moss, by the way. Don't fucking at me in the comments. I might wash some of my pots, but I don't think that's completely necessary. I don't know, man. I'm trying to think it out. I'll figure it out. It'll be fine. I'll either buy new pots completely, or I will just wash those pots in a washing machine, something like that. But I will be starting a new grow pretty much right away and using one of those lights. How dark should you be in your drying room? UV rays from the sunlight can degrade cannabis plants. So for optimal drying, keep your space dark. If you don't have a light tight space, cover your buds. It's okay to open the door and check the buds, but prolonged exposure can quicken drying, which is the same for flower. I find that if you're in there and you're in there for like a minute and you have a really low intensity light and you're just kind of checking up on your plants, making sure they're good, getting a look at them, whatever you need to do in there, just keep the exposure limited. Like if you use your phone flashlight, you're not going to stress your plants out enough to harm them or re-veg them. Both those things take a lot of time. How dark should your grow room be? Blah, blah, blah. Quick and drying cannabis dry room equipment, drying rack or line to hang cannabis buds, hygrometer to measure the temperature and humidity, a fan. And by the way, I wanted to ask this: how many people don't use a fan? Because I heard Pigeons 420. I believe, don't quote me on this, but I heard a cannabis influencer, I believe it was Cannabis or Pigeons 420. He doesn't use a fan anymore. He doesn't circulate the air in there. He doesn't believe it's necessary as long as you keep the temperature and the humidity at an optimal range. And how many people are actually doing that? Let me know in the chat, and maybe we can talk about it. Air conditioning unit, optional. Dehumidifier, optional. How to hang dry buds. Hanging drying tends to labor intensive. I don't use a fan. I dry in a small closet. Respect. How long have you been doing that, and what kind of results are you getting? Hang drying buds is less labor intensive, but it takes up more space. It involves hanging big branches or even hanging whole plants upside down, which is what I'm going to do. I'm going to hang those entire plants upside down. This saves time because you don't have to buck or remove individual buds off the branches, but there's more plant hanging drying. This way will take up a lot more space. Another downside to hang drying the buds may take longer to dry as there's more plant matter, i.e. branches, stems, stalks, and fan leaves, which can be a good thing depending on your environment. I use a fan if they're in the summer where the humidity can be as high as 90%. Hey, that makes sense, man. Right now we're in the winter, so the humidity is like in the 30s. I'll check right now to get you guys a live number as to what we're sitting at, especially now since the light's on. So earlier it was at 70 degrees and now it's at 77. And the humidity is at a strong 35 in that garden. It depends on where I live. I've used a fan and I haven't. Here it seems like it'll be a little bit better if I use a fan. Blowing the air around, not directly on the plants though. Yep, you don't want to blow that air directly on the plants because it can dry them out too fast for sure. You just want it to circulate around the room, make sure that you're not going to accumulate mold and stuff like that. My humidity right now is at 15% outside and 30% inside. Woo! I'm not sure what the humidity is outside, but it's probably fucking disgustingly low. When the buds are done drying and have been trimmed, the initial amount of moisture is out and it is time to cure the weed. For curing, you'll be storing finished buds in containers, typically airtight glass jars. I use mason or ball jars to stop the loss of moisture and preserve flavors, aromas. Curing usually takes 2 weeks to a month, and humidity inside curing containers needs to be between 55 and 65. How many of you guys use exclusively mason jars or ball jars, like that type of jar, versus like saving peanut butter jelly jars or salsa jars or stuff like that? You guys save like food jars to put your stuff in? Because those are probably like pretty good too, right? And then you get a variety of sizes and stuff. I used to, when I would gift uh, my bud to people, I would put it in like baby food jars if they were getting like, if I was giving them like an eighth at a time or something. They just wanted a small amount. Mostly mason. That's pretty popular. It was also fair. I mean, you can buy a bunch of mason jars for like $25. Like it's pretty cheap. Curing process is possibly the most overlooked aspect of growing weed. Yep, mason jars. All right. Um, During curing, the moisture continues to draw from the buds toward the outside. Curing affects the flavor, quality of smoke, and many of the terpenes, which gives cannabis its unique smell and flavor. Quite sensitive, can degrade and evaporate the temperatures. Wow. Degrade at temperatures as low as 50 degrees Fahrenheit. So really pay attention to your temperature. Make sure it's not getting high. A slow cure temperature will preserve terpenes better than a quick, hot, dry, which, duh. A proper cure also allows you to store weed for a long time without worrying about mold or cannabinoid terpene degradation. A well-cured flower can be stored in an airtight container in a cool, dark place for up to 2 years without significant loss of potency. I switched to grow bags because of the 2020 mason jar shortage. I didn't even know there was a 2020 mason jar shortage. What are your thoughts on those grow bags? Are you asking my thoughts or Ken Farmer's thoughts? Because I haven't used them personally. So Ken Farmer would probably be able to give a way better insight as to how the grove bags work. What does curing weed do? Curing helps finish out the buds, improving their taste and smell. During curing, chlorophyll continues to break down, getting rid of the vegetal taste. Without curing, weed would taste like freshly cut lawn. This chlorophyll makes buds less harsh. This loss of chlorophyll makes the buds less harsh and smoother to smoke, which I'm sure we've all smoked harsh bud before, either because we were impatient or just because we got our buds from a not so great grower. I just use jars, but I cure a little different than most people. I dump the whole jar for 5 minutes a day for 2 weeks. Just opening the top isn't enough. Yeah, a lot of people just open the top, I guess, but I personally like to do what you do and dump the entire jar out twice a day. But I will do this for 30 minutes. I've been doing it for an hour every 12 hours at the beginning, getting as much of that moisture as I can off. And I think I'm going to lower that to 30 minutes twice a day because that will save me a ton of time and a lot of worry. That my buds are either going to over dry or that I need to do something and it's just a quick 30-minute thing. Like 30 minutes is a lot easier to handle than an hour. because it even got to the point where I would have to go to work, and I was working really long shifts, or I would have other obligations I need to do, and it would be like, hey, buddy, I'm living with, like my brother or my uh, fiance at the time, who's now my wife. I would be like, hey, can you open this jar and dump it out, and then put it back for all of these jars? And I would have people doing me favors, basically. Um, and it was just something at the time that I couldn't do all myself. I do 5 minutes a day for the first 2 weeks, 5 minutes every other day for 2 weeks, and then once a week for like another 3 to 4 weeks. My schedule for that will normally depend on the humidity. Like after the first 2 weeks, you can smoke it. Like it is possible to get that kind of curing in. It's not going to be the best yet, but it's going to be smokable. It is going to work. It's going to be a little wet, but it'll work. And then once I hit that 2 week mark, I can usually open it once every couple of days. Once it gets up to like 75% humidity or something like that. And then it's like, oh, once a week. And then it's a couple times a month maybe. And it all personally depends on the humidity. And that will depend on bud size. It will depend on a ton of things. Then in a room with stable temperature and humidity, dank, wet basements, or hot, muggy attics aren't ideal. The space should maintain room temperature and not be too humid. Light can also degrade terpenes. It is ideal to turn the lights off in a space and be able to cover the jars so light doesn't leak. To cure buds, you will need airtight jars and hygrometers for each jar to measure the temperature and humidity, which I think I'm going to have to re-up on them. And that looks like mold. Unless that's just the lighting. Once buds are dry, it's time to cure them. Place the trimmed buds into some type of airtight container. Most people use wide mouth quart, half-gallon glass mason jars, but you can use ceramic metal or wood vessels, which I also have like these big plastic containers, but I learned that your stuff can actually like leak out of the containers and leach out through the plastic. So I don't use those for that anymore. Have you tried to grow nutrients from seed to harvest? Biggest secret that everyone laughs at me for. Are you asking like feeding from seed to harvest? Because I don't feed from seed. I feed a very light dose when you start to like get into the vegetative stage. Like once they hit their first like set of true leaves where they have 3 fingers instead of one, that's when I start feeding. But yeah, I fed all the way up to harvest before. Plastic bags aren't good for curing. They are not impervious to oxygen. Also, you don't want your weed tasting like plastic. Um, Pack buds loosely in containers without compacting or crushing them. Seal the containers um, and store in a cool, dry, dark place. Within a day or two, you'll notice the buds get a little softer from the moisture. I use basically either for organic, just Dr. Earth Grow, or Dynagrow. Boom nutrients always mess it up for me. So are you talking growing organic or synthetic right now, or like synganic? I'm kind of confused because isn't Dr. Earth Grow organic and Dynagrow? I don't know a lot about Dynagrow, to be fair. Within a day or two, you'll notice the buds get a little softer and moisture from the middle of the bud rehydrates the outer parts. This doesn't happen. Um, this doesn't happen. Where was I? If this doesn't happen, you have likely overdried your cannabis. Humidity inside sealed jars should be about 55 to 65%. If you're unsure, you can also buy a digital hygrometer, which measures the moisture available for about $20 at any hardware store. I do both. I grow cocoa, hempy, one bucket tent, roots organic grow, and another with dry organic newts. Basically organic or synthetic, doesn't matter. Always use grow nutrients. Oh, you're talking about like the grow base nutrients. I'm not sure if Remo's grow nutrients go into flour, but I can look. Yeah, no, the grow nutrients for Remo Nutrients, which is the nutrient line that I've been using primarily for the past 5 years, does actually end once you get into a flower stage. So I've been using synthetic nutrients and mixed with From the Stash for these last two runs, which turned out super well. If you want to look at my stuff from my last run, I think of it fondly on a regular basis. My last indoor run, to be fair. And no, my grow nutrients, I follow the feed chart primarily. It ends at the flower stage. So once I flip the flower, no more grow nutrients. And a lot of that is to cut back on the nitrogen. You have Maxi Grow and Maxi Bloom. Internet tells you to switch to Maxi Bloom for flower. I use Maxi Grow the whole time. Yeah, no, my grow nutrients stop at flower. So I haven't, but I could give it a shot. I'm definitely open to trying new things. Do you do like a low dosage, or do you like follow what you would use and use even ratios for everything? How exactly are you doing that? Okay, learned it from old school growers. Some of them, when it comes to old school growers, some of them are unhinged. A lot of them go and use bro science and don't like to look at new studies and stuff. Try it on one plant and see. Always use a half dose. You know what I could do is I could do that for when I grow my canine cake. I could do a lot of experiments like this on it. See the stress tests, how it handles nutrients and all that stuff, and then compare and contrast for soil feed. Water for cocoa, half dose, and every watering. Or feed water. Oh, okay. So when you grow in soil or peat moss, I assume, unless you only use soil, um, you'll feed, you'll do two waterings, and then you'll feed again. And for cocoa, you half dose every watering. I feed every single time for my plants, and I've been doing that for a little while. I've been having good results. So maybe I'll try my next run, I'll try feeding one plant. I'll try feeding one plant grow nutrients all the way through. And maybe as a challenge for you, you could try feeding every single watering and see what you can do. Use Roots Organic Lush, let it run out of newts. Then half dose, water, half dose till done. Interesting. I've never done a half dose all the way through either. In fact, I've done grows where I go over the recommended dosage. Um, but it is getting pretty late. I got stuff to get ready for. We'll go until like it's 10:30 right now. We'll go until 10:45, and then I gotta hop off. Um, so burping your buds during the first week of curing, regardless of humidity level. Open the containers once or twice a day for a couple of minutes. This is called burping. This releases extra moisture and replenishes oxygen inside the container. If you notice an odor or aroma while opening the container, it means the buds are not dry enough and the anaerobic bacteria are consuming them, which will lead to moldy, rotten cannabis leaves. Leave the lid off for a day and reseal tomorrow. So avoid under drying. How long does it take to cure cannabis? I feed constantly until harvest, starting with the third week of the vegetative stage. At So you let it get until the third week of veg. When do you start veg? Hey, you still got a minute to smoke that joint, Chuck. I I wouldn't be too bummed about that. You got a little minute, about 15, which is enough to smoke a joint, I would say. Um, Constantly until harvest. So you start the third week of veg. That's a significant time to not feed your plant. So what are you doing for that? So third week from seed. Is that what you're talking about? Because that kind of makes sense because it does take a while for that true leaf to first pop up. So is it like third week from germination? Or is it like the third week from when the veg stage starts when you get that first like true leaf or when the plant has a couple nodes under its belt? Like when exactly do you count the veg stages starting? Oh, okay. So they have a base feed and then you let that run out and then you feed again. That makes a lot more sense. How long does it take to cure cannabis? After about 2 to 4 weeks in the containers, your cannabis will be cured enough to give flavorful, aromatic, and quality experiences. Some people prefer to cure for 4 to 8 weeks, and some strains take about 6 months for the cure, or for 6 months or more of curing to actually finish. And a lot of cannabis cup winners will cure for about 6 months. After curing the cannabis, you can store the buds up to 2 to 4 years, or up to 2 years, without much loss of potency. Like fine wine or a whiskey barrel, properly dried and cured plants is best when kept in a cool, dark place. Mildew and other molds of cannabis organic matter thrive in temperatures between 77 and 86 degrees. Excessive heat can dry out cannabis, and terpenes have taken months to develop. When these essential oils get too dry along with the plant material, it can result in a hot, harsh smoke, which I'm sure we've all experienced, and it's not a fun one. Strange, it changed my game microbial inoculants. If I have good bag soil, I don't feed at all through the veg. I'll I'll top dress with something called Craft Blend about a week before I flip to flower. That's a solid strategy. You work on the organic side, so you have to do a lot less work when it comes to your plant. I have to make um, water pretty much. Oh, I've been doing it like every 2 weeks. I've been having to make water, which is a little bit more work, but yeah, growing synthetic is a completely different game than growing organic. And the craft blend is something I wanted to also get into and also try doing organic runs. Um, Half dose is all I need in containers. If that's what's working for you, that's tinfoil hat. That's what you got to do. Um, Super soil myself, they have plenty of food as well, but I've noticed about once a week I'll give them a milliliter of microbial inoculants. So far, I have no issue with it. Speaking of, I'm going to smoke a joint right now. Hey, light that shit up, brother. Um, yeah. So when it comes to the microbiome, it's good to introduce new stuff. With the stash blend, they do have microbes in there, so I am actually introducing new microbes every single time I water with the stash blend. And if you're doing that and adding a variety, you're adding more of a network, which can benefit your plants a lot more than just having the same type of microbes going in there or just keeping the same population of microbes and not introducing anything new. It can be very beneficial for your plants. I use micro inoculant right away. I stop about 2 weeks before the end of flower. I would say I give it in veg, but I don't do that for seedlings. I don't have enough experience, I would say, to give a recommendation on how much you should be introducing microbes. Because for a long time, I didn't. I was just giving like straight Remo nutrients, and whatever microbes happened to be in there is what my plants were dealing with. And that was such high quality and really mind blowing stuff. And I would get compliments from everybody saying it was like the best stuff they've ever had, most flavorful. I don't understand how you get the flavor. This worked really well. Like, I got almost no negative reviews, and I gifted out a lot of stuff to a lot of people just because at the time I had so much, and everyone loved it. It was fantastic. I was having a great time. 3 month cure before I'm really happy. I normally go for I find 2 months is where my plants like really peak out, but also my wheat doesn't normally last more than 2 months, so I have no real idea. Indoors, in my opinion, you aren't really getting this biodiversity with your organic soil. The sun is needed. With that said, pre-amended soil and dry newts do work fine for indoors if you do it um, on time. Yeah, and that's something you kind of got to figure out. If you're planting your plants straight in the ground and they're dealing with the microbiome that's like already there, that can have a certain benefit to it. If you're growing your plants indoors and you're trying to play God a little bit and you're creating your own microbiome, it's still beneficial. And I don't know enough personally to say how much of a difference it really makes, but it is beneficial to have a variety of different microbes in there because one company could sell like sells a different one company will sell one microbe and the other one will sell another microbe community, and if you intertwine those, the more like micro diversity you have, the more biome diversity you have inside of your like garden. And it's kind of the same with like cover crops where they will benefit your plant just by being there. Like, for example, bringing nitrogen in from the air and transferring it into the soil, and then the microbes taking from that, giving it to the plant, and having this real synergy going on. It's all super positive. As long as you have a high quality light, I would say you're good. I don't think the sun is really necessary for growing plants. But again, I'm not a scientist. I'm just a guy online who knows how to grow, and I've been doing it for a little while. And I don't see a big difference between indoor and outdoor. I haven't experienced a big difference between indoor, outdoor, organic, synthetic, um, any of that type of stuff. As long as you grow high quality weed, it ends up being high quality weed, and that's just kind of what it is. And if you have a preference, that's perfectly fine. I just haven't noticed an objective difference. I'll do a side by side of the web of growing of life from my outdoor deck and grow my indoor. That would be interesting to see if you could actually get that like analyzed or like put it under a microscope and be like, oh, all this stuff is going on, but at the same time, who's to say everything that's going on in your outdoors like positive? Unless you just really have like a crazy amount of knowledge. But you might. Who am I to say? Um, Store out of direct sunlight in your cool, dry place. Store in neutral containers like glass, mason jars. Use hygrometers. Um, Vacuum seal jars, containers, maximize or minimize oxygen exposure. tactical text there. But how many of you guys are actually vacuum sealing containers? Because I've never done that. Separate strains to maintain individual flavor profiles, and I do that down to phenotype. Like Chill Out OG 1, 2, and 3 are all going to be separated and labeled properly. I'm using 2 SF2000s over those 3 plants, and I've had them for years. And they work really great. Like, I've grown, I think, 5 plants in that small closet under those 2 SF2000s, and gosh darn it, it all turned out high quality. I had 2 White Widows, cherry cookies, and then some other plants. I can't remember all the strains I grew, but right now I just have 3 Chill Out OGs, and you get different cannabinoids with the sun. That's all genetic. I don't know what you looked into for that. Like maybe the more intense UV light changes like the potency, I guess, like the levels, but the actual cannabinoids you're getting, that's genetic. And the ratios are genetic, but the sun might bring out more because it has more UV intensity, which I've been thinking about supplementing UV rays in the actual gardening and getting like ultraviolet light, but I haven't done that yet. But it's a bro science thing, and it's a common misconception that the sun or organic soil or just growing outdoors, they say it'll change your terpene composition, it'll change your cannabinoid composition, and all this good stuff. And all that's just genetic. Like that is set by the genes, like what you're going to get out of the plant. It just, depending on how good of a grower you are, you can get different stuff out of your plant. And then harvest timing, and then how good you take care of your plant after the chop. That is all grower dependent. What is this dog barking at? I use a Maxi Sun PB4000 and 2 SF2000s in my 4x8. Such good lights. I'm glad you're having good experiences. I've never heard of a Maxi Sun PB4000, but it sounds really cool. The big difference with the outdoors is the rain can wash away some compounds, and it may change the taste. I've never heard of that personally. I did notice it's really easy to grow weed, but it's hard to grow good weed. Yeah, it's hard to grow. I think the biggest thing between growing weed and growing good weed, because I think about it a lot. You can grow weed in anything. You can grow weed in any way, basically. There are a million ways to grow it. But when you get down to the key factors of the training, when you get down into the factors of the drying and the curing, and how much time you spend with your plant, how much you touch your plant, things that happen when it comes to nutrients, and you dial all of that in, it can greatly change your game. It's the environment, and an important, I'd argue outdoor weed is stinkier for sure. A lot of people could think that. I think a big thing when it comes to the stinkier outdoor weed is that your plants are normally growing bigger, so it has more surface area to grow cannabinoids. And if you have more surface area to grow terpenes, then yeah, it will be stinkier of a plant overall, just because it's a larger plant, in my opinion. Your home has heat or AC system messing with the humidity levels, etc. Outdoor, perfectly grown is better. I'd argue that indoor perfectly grown can be better also, because if you grow in a grow tent and you can dial in your environment really well, then it's going to be comparable, if not better, than outdoors because of all of the things that can go wrong outdoors that you can't control. For example, if you don't have a greenhouse or something like that, it could rain, it could mold, it could die. And if you have high humidity, it could be wet, it could mold, it could die. Um, and granted, that's not even getting to the harvest part because of how the plant is treated. But yeah, it's a big environment thing, and if you can control the environment, you're going to be able to grow great weed. I don't understand why people have such a preference for outdoor weed, other than the fact that you get a higher yield and it's a lot easier. Because in every other way, every other measurable way, indoor and outdoor are comparable. Like if you can get a perfect environment inside, if you can get a perfect environment outside and you just have a really good year, those buds are going to, and let's say they're both clones, each individual bud is going to be extremely comparable. And that's been studied before and it's been compared before when it comes to um, like the terpene profile, cannabinoid composition, and stuff like that. I think people have a preference for outdoor simply because their plants can grow bigger and stuff like that. And I don't have a preference either way. Like I'm speaking as someone who's done both, who likes both, but I don't believe that I'm getting better quality stuff in either avenue. I just have a higher success rate indoors simply because I can control the environment a lot more. Um, just got back from Jamaica farms. The sun makes it crazy. It's probably also has to do with their climate, because the weed I grow in Michigan is going to be a lot different than the stuff they grow in Jamaica. Not only because like the stuff they're growing in Jamaica likely has been evolving to grow there for thousands of years. But the thing about growing in Michigan is I'm taking something that might have grown in like in Russia or Jamaica or Canada or Florida or Georgia or California, and I'm growing it outdoors in Michigan. That's going to turn out a lot different than anywhere else in the world, I feel like. So it's also how your plants react to, again, environment. And something that grows really well in Florida might not do as well in Michigan. Something that grows really well in Michigan might not do as well as Florida, and vice versa. So it's a big thing. But when it comes to indoor, again, you can control the environment if you know where it grew, and you can like look up the historical numbers of where things have been in the environment when it comes to temperature, humidity, light intensity, UV light saturation, take into account how a grower actually like if you could go to the breeder of a certain genetic and be like, how did you treat this plant? What kind of training did you do? And all that good stuff. How much did you expose it to human touch? How much have you looked at it? What did you do to take care of it? All these things are going to help you dial in how to treat this plant and get the best result you can out of it. But whether you do that indoors or outdoors, it's possible you get a different outcome depending on where you are. But again, if you can grow indoor and you can dial in the same environment that it's used to growing in or it's optimal in, then I would argue that the indoor plant is going to be better than the outdoor plant because you dialed those things in, and not it's going to be better outside because it was outside. Um, just catching up with chat here. Grown weed on accident here in the farm dropping seeds. That does happen for sure. Um, sun makes it crazy. Small ones are just as good. Yeah, all my outdoor plants that I've actually been able to harvest have been about the same size as these chill out OGs, if not shorter, and they've all turned out really well. Wouldn't outdoors smell better from the trichome head bursting and evaporating from the sun's heat? Hence the stronger smell versus indoor controlled low temperature. You stop the smell. That could also be Pedro. I'm not 100% sure about all of that, how much the light stress from the sun ruptures trichome heads. I don't think I've heard of that specific phenomenon, but the wind blowing on the plants can be a lot more intense and then shake up that plant, and it can for sure traumatize those trichomes to make it smell better. But at the same time, you're losing that when you're growing. So it would depend on if you're talking about post-harvest smell versus during growing smell. Indoor makes prettier flowers. Outside can grow them bigger. Again, it can depend on genetics. It can depend on a lot of things. But if you can control the environment to a certain extent, you can control how the plant works. It could just be the grower too. Yeah, a lot of it comes down to who's growing the plant. Watering practices, blah blah blah. So many variables in growing the plant, and that's why I don't think there's one way or the other is better. It just depends on, are you better at growing outdoors? Because if you're better at growing outdoors, then you will grow a better outdoor plant. If you're good at growing indoors, you will grow good indoor plants. Personally, I've done both really well, and they are very comparable. Good conversation here for sure, man. We have a lot of good conversations here. If you guys haven't yet, by the way, there's what 12, 13 people in chat right now. It peaked at 15, I saw. If you guys aren't subscribed yet, I'm seeing a lot of new chatters. First off, go ahead and leave a like, hit the subscribe button. Consider joining the membership program. I don't have a lot that comes out of that, but it helps out the channel a lot. And also, I am planning on doing members only content at some point. Let me know what you guys want to see, whether it's testing certain things in the garden, seeing the garden more often, stuff like that. Definitely let me know. Growing any plant, not just cannabis, comes down to tender love and care for sure, which is another thing I like to do. Good morning, Bear Gross. Good to see you in the chat, man. Been a while since I've seen you, but it's good nonetheless. But yeah, TLC comes down to the grower. Depends on what they're doing. Depends on what they're good at. You need to curate your plant, your garden to you for the most part. And if you get a genetic that does not vibe with you and the way you grow, and you're not versatile like a lot of growers, and you can't deal with a lot of different factors, you're going to have a hard time growing that plant. Even if it's a good plant, like if you can get it to the end part, and it would be a good plant to grow, and it would be like perfect for you and your therapeutic needs, for example, or it would be the dankiest, smelliest bud ever, but it's a genetic that you can't deal with either in the veg stage or the flower stage. That's nothing against you as a grower. You just need to find something else to grow that you're actually going to be able to grow that's also going to help you, which is why I find it a good thing. A lot of people find it daunting. I find it a good thing that there are thousands of different genetic compositions that you can choose from, because that means no matter how you are as a grower, there will be something that can deal with you, and there will be something that you can deal with. And if you can find that senescence, you can find that synergy with a plant, that's a very fucking beautiful thing. I'll show the grow newts till harvest. Oh, if you guys want to join the Discord and you guys actually want to show off like your gardens and like say what you've been doing with your plants, I can link the Discord join link below, and you guys can join the conversation there. So I'll do that real quick. I'll set that up. I will share it in the chat. We have a lot of great conversations there. We've seen a lot of beautiful plants come into the Discord. Consider joining for sure. That is that link that I just dropped right there. So any last minute thoughts anyone wants to drop? I was supposed to stop about 10 minutes ago. So anything that you guys are considering, if you're joining the membership program, anything you guys want to see, any of that stuff. Thank you for the likes, by the way. I just took a look at the like number. Definitely check out the Discord link. Let me know what you want in the members only program. We can definitely make that happen. And once you start seeing videos pop up that you would be interested in, definitely consider joining that. But any last minute stuff, any last thoughts, things you've been doing in the garden you see as unique that you haven't been seeing anyone doing, any genetics I should check out at some point, any breeders you guys like, any of that good stuff, go ahead and leave it in here. Not all stuff's going to grow outside in your spot. That's when you start making crosses. That can definitely help. Fortunately, with the cannabis space where it is, personally, I would just rather find something that grows really well in my area And fortunately, since it's legal here to grow 12 plants at a time, I can talk to people and be like, hey, what's growing really well here? And I've had conversations like that in the past. And a couple of the top contenders are White Widow, Green Crack, um, and then things that I've grown, cherry cookies, um, outdoors. Well, actually, maybe that one's not a very good example. I've grown a lot of outdoor plants. AK-47 grew really well outdoors. I'm creating a back cross of my lemon loaf this run, making seeds. Congratulations, man. I'm super excited to get into breeding and see what's going on. I'm in VA, but we actually have really good outdoor weather for growing. That's awesome. Um, yeah, here in New York and on X, the Grow Talk is amazing these days. The X, Twitter, whatever you call it now, that can be a really positive place to learn about growing. Subscribing right now. Hey, glad to have you, Crippled Cannabis Cowboy. Hey. Um, a good strain for really hot weather. I would say anything like sativa like. So for me personally, if someone said, hey, I have, what's your humidity like? Is it really humid? Or is it like a dry heat? Because that could be a different answer. But I would say if you're really just looking at the heat stress, Chill Out OG has been dealing with heat really well. Um, I would say Lemon Kush, anything sativa like really. Um, Personally, I haven't had to deal with like extreme heat a lot, but maybe this year I'll have different answers for you. Um, Bancroft, Ontario, Canada, northeast of you, and I grew about 14-foot tall OG Kush by reserve private this summer. The plant was gigantic. 14 feet is no fucking joke. I've grown plants that are like 6.5 feet tall, like a lemon kush. Not sure during the summer. Yeah, I would just go with anything sativa like. If you have a really long growing season, if not, just look up indica plants that will. Some indica plants that will deal with heat really well that also flower really fast. So if you have like a harsh winter or a quick winter that really just comes on, I would look into that. And a lot of seed shops are pretty flexible with their stuff. And you can also look on forums. Like I don't have the infinite knowledge that I would like to have. Simply because I don't have a ton of experience under my belt, especially growing outdoors, but I have succeeded personally. But glad to have you. Anyone who's joining the Discord community, anyone who is newly subscribed, um, I'm glad to have you. And anyone who has liked, I definitely appreciate all the likes. And the chat has been super great today, but I am getting off very late. So, hey, have a good day, everyone. Whatever you're smoking on, have a great time. I will see you